Listen, the lady sitting with us is from Freeport McMoran.
Oh, great.
Had a good, slow working on it. And then you've got Brenda Sperduti and Jerry Wizard from Legacy.
Yes.
That's the deal.
That's
Don't get
very
that
important. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's my favorite.
I've never yet gotten anybody to tell me exactly what cat meat is.
Come here, Dennis. Dennis. Is that all right? This is Dennis Rusk,
Hi.
our Sergeant of Arms. He's gonna put it on YouTube. Oh, I better turn my thing on.
Hey, turn your badge on. There you go. Baby.
Yeah. Tony Kakar, the president. All right.
Guy falling? No, not quite.
Couldn't see it, right?
Well, at least they had something for us, huh? Right here. Can you bring me a bunch of the blue sweetener too? Thank you.
Salvation.
Just check it. Looks good.
Linda, I'm Kim. Nice to meet you. You bet. So what's your name today? I have my own company. I'm semi-retired. You too. What was your line of work? Oh, good for you. Well, I'm a security consultant. San Francisco Pyramid. I designed that for Paris. Done it all my life, so it's fun.
Calvin Pride. All right.
Well, nice. Welcome everybody. What a good looking group we have. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to Roger. So, how are you? Good. Well, welcome to our 5,117th meeting. This is our 102nd year as the 100th Rotary Club in the world. The best in Arizona. I look forward to coming, and thank you for asking me to do the presidential duties this year. I'm enjoying it immensely. Can you believe Prince died? I'm shocked. Remember Josh Anton here, George Phillips? Remember we went to the Prince concert? And he was there, not here. But he just died. He was one of a kind, just unbelievable. And then Wolf Blitzer. Now, this is not a political day. Wolf Blitzer, the CNN guy, he did an unbelievable job, giving him a tribute. And then at the end, he named one of his songs. Now let's see, who all knows? Is it Purple Rain or Purple Haze? We'll call it Purple Haze. Yeah. He's unbelievable. He's never been to a Prince concert. And then we have an 800-yard long tunnel.
Yes.
Has elevators, has air conditioning, lights, do a motorcycle tour. It's unbelievable. Between Tijuana and San Diego. So we got it yesterday or the day before. So I am going to hand over my reins of the presidency today to Past President Roger Marce. He is the president of Manufacturers Lease Plans, and he has put this together. He has a great relationship with the Salvation Army, and he's been nice enough to invite me to several of their events. So take it away, Mr. Roger Marce.
I'd like to start with the first thing first. I'd like to thank Carl Balderson, Dick Dunsey, Don Bauman, Brendan Kennedy, Jerry Oliver, Carl Peterson, and of course Randy. Sorry, of course Cody. Been checking for me for the last 336 meetings. I am a past president of Rotary 100, and I'm also the current chair of the Phoenix Advisory Board of the Salvation Army, which is why Tony asked me to sit as acting president for today's meeting, and I'm privileged to do so, and I thank you for the opportunity. Our tradition is that we start the meeting with an invocation and pledge, followed by a song. Our invocation and pledge this afternoon, will be by Ted Taylor, who is the executive director of Phoenix Family Promise of Greater Phoenix, and he's also, I think, one of our beneficiaries of our foundation. The patriotic song this morning will be by the Rotary 100 Rubber Band, which ragtag bunch you see forming over to my left. More about them later. Ted.
So as a point of personal privilege, I just want to tell you what a joy it is to be able to do the blessing today. So if you are so inclined, will you pray with me? Heavenly Father, at the seat of mercy, you call us to love unconditionally, having compassion for the poor in body, mind, and spirit, and to trust in you. Today, Father, in the midst of our abundant blessings, you call each of us to be soldiers in your army of love, an army that has never been defeated and will never lose. Give us courage, Lord, to risk our comfort for those who have no comfort, to love others without condition, and to fight evil, the evil of self-centeredness that seeks to separate each of us, our community, our country, and our world from you. Our salvation rests in you, not us. We do not know our time, but you do. Convict us, inspire us to love abundantly now, and lead us to leave a future of blessings to others, as you have so generously given to us. Amen. Amen. And if you would join me in the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rotary rubber band was formed 52 years ago by a group of Rotarians. Rotarians decided to raise the money for the Salvation Army by crashing board meetings of the local banks and some of the local buildings and singing Christmas carols to them, paying for donations to the Salvation Army. They quickly discovered that some staff they could raise more money by agreeing to not sing. Our current director of the band is Barry Schubert. Barry, stand and be recognized again, please. Ready to walk up here. My extreme left, who will be introducing our speaker in just a few minutes, is Barry's aide de camp. She's a great spirit. Thus far, they've raised almost $1.5 million for the Salvation Army, and we're very proud of that. And I might add, if you think that a visit by the band might fit your business, please see either Barry or Randy after the meeting and express your interest in that meeting. Maybe you'll have. Normally, at this point, we would introduce we had somebody come forward to introduce all of our guests and visitors. We're going to abbreviate that because we have so many guests. I do want to introduce one very special guest, Mr. Sylvia Cox, the wife of our speaker. We're so glad to have you with us today and hope you enjoy your stay at Phoenix. I'm going to ask Joe Basilico, Southwest Divisional Commander of the Salvation Army, to introduce some of our special guests from the Salvation Army. Joe?
So some been asked a lot, what happened to you? Well, if you want the exotic story with the truth, you can ask me later. But just to suffice to know, yes, I had a broken leg, and hopefully this cast will come off next week. You'll notice there's a lot of uniforms in the room. When the Salvation Army is international leader, travels to different locations. Usually there's a lot of uniforms in the room that come with them. So quickly we'll go through and just introduce some of our folks who are here. Our national leaders were supposed to be with us, but at the last minute we have a convention conference going on at the convention center. We have 2,800 people from across the country at the Phoenix Convention Center. He was called away to do another presentation. But we have from our national office, our chief secretary, and our national secretary for women's ministries, Colonel Dave and Sharon Hudson. And usually when the general travels, there's always a in-house reporter who travels as well. And we have also from our national office, the editor of Salvation Army War Crimes, Major Alan Satterley. Over here. Someone who's no stranger for us, a former member of this club, currently a member of the Sun City Club, Colonel Don Sager is with us today. Coming with him, retired Salvation Army officer who served as the leader in the Philippines at one point, Commissioner Rob Saunders. And lady and her husband and wife worked for before in San Francisco and then replaced them in San Francisco and has served here and I believe has attended this club a number of times. Colonel Betty Love. From our territorial office, our chief secretary, Colonel Doug Riley. And I think one of the most interesting jobs you can have in the Salvation Army is to be the aide-de-camp to the general. You get to carry the luggage, you get to make sure all the trips are there, you get to do all of that. From Scotland, Captain David. Someone else who is familiar with this club, named Gary Lexi, he's with our pastoral care office. And our director of responsible for all of our youth services within the Salvation Army Southwest Division, Captain Anthony Barnes. Comes well equipped to work with kids. He's a former deputy sheriff in Monterey County, California, and got talked into becoming a Salvation Army officer instead of continuing a law enforcement career. And one other person I just wanted to mention, a member of our National Salvation Army Board, Jonathan and Linda Kidmo, with us as well today.
Thank you, Joe. Brief report, request the President. Past President and past District Governor John King recently applied to the board to take a leave of absence for medical reasons, and the board came up with a far better idea. They made John an honorary member of the club, which I think he deserves a round of applause. I'm sure he appreciates your congratulatory cards and notes. Josh Ansel is recovering from eye surgery, and Cynthia Thomas, Craig Prouty's significant other, is undergoing cancer treatment, so please keep them in your thoughts and your prayers. Now time for a secretary's report from April Miller.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're so excited to have everyone here from the Salvation Army today. With respect for the time, I'm going to just go right into announcing our photographer and our reporter today, and then we'll go to our table ambassadors. So here I go. So our photographer today is Dave Johnson, Community Liaison for Hospice of the Valley. Our Rosarian reporter is Patricia Wolf, Travel Consultant, retired. With that, we'll go to our table ambassadors.
some information on some of the activities that we have going on. We're glad to have you all participating. We're also sponsoring Safari to Kenya. That's some information on that. Also some information on the community outreach with Rotary working with other organizations, obviously like Shelter. We go around the table quickly and introduce everybody. You and I are the only my name is Henry Hyde. Gordon Murphy. Gordon and I work back in Washington. I'm so white, I have 3,000 paid speeches. All 50 states and one topic. I have 20 audio once I well, I was just in a trade association, but we didn't want to be directed.
Thank you. One of the things we like to do in Rotary is to show our support for the philanthropic and humanitarian organizations that we support. And it's my privilege this time to call Andy Gutierrez to come up. He's the owner and president of Phoenix Internet to make a check presentation.
Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. Before I present this check, I'd like to talk to everyone about North Phoenix Rotary Club. The North Phoenix Rotary Club started in 1955. It was the second Rotary Club here in Phoenix, and it was born from Club 100. Through the 60 years the club was around, we had 4 district governors, and we helped the community, local and globally, and did it very well. Our club had focused on serving children and those that are handicapped. We provided lots of dental equipment to the John C. Lincoln Dental Clinic, bought specialty vehicles, braces, and assorted equipment for the handicapped and disabled, water projects across the world, built shelters in Mexico and South America, served in soup kitchens, and even drove ambulances across the border of Mexico with lights flashing to not get stopped, to provide ambulances to the city of Hermosillo where they desperately needed it. This is just a small fraction of the club's 60 years accomplishments, but I've only been given 2 minutes to speak. Our club has always had a great relationship with the Salvation Army, and Harry Lacey has always been a good ambassador, even though he is Canadian. Harry always kept us busy in the Christmas season. He always had us ringing bells, buying Christmas gifts for Christmas angels. Both great Salvation Army projects, and those became a part of our club tradition. A couple of months ago, our club, North Phoenix Rotary Club, was no longer sustainable, and we decided to close its doors. However, many of us decided to continue in Rotary in Club 100. Thank you, 100. as a group, the North Phoenix Rotary Club decided that there would be no better place to give the money we had remaining than to give it to the Salvation Army's family shelter. As we know and trust, it will help many needy families in our community, just as our club had done for the past 60 years. So as our final swan song, and that being said, I'd like to present a check to Harry Lacey in an amount of $9,100 from the North Phoenix Rotary Club for the Salvation Army. I don't know where the check is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andy, and thank you very much, Harry, for all the work you have done in the past within Rotary, but more importantly for the Salvation Army. I'm privileged now to call upon our Vice President, our President-elect, Joe Pruitt, who is going to present a check request, present a check to another one of our humanitarian partners. There it is. Okay.
I don't know about you, but I'm impressed with the group of people that are here today. We have captains of industries, generals, we have people from large corporations, small business. I don't think we've had this impressive a group in this room since last Friday. This is what we have been doing in Phoenix since 1914. And today we continue that tradition. I have with me Brenda Sperduti from the Assistance League and Jerry Wizzick from the Legacy Foundation. You may recall earlier this year we dressed a lot of kids, school kids, with school uniforms. This year we did something a little differently in that when you went to our wine party, the Vino Grape Arizona, Grape Arizona wine event, we raised a lot of money for Rotary, and a portion of that was dedicated to the Assistance League. And what happened with our piece is that the Legacy Foundation said they would match that. So I am here today proudly to give the Assistance League 4 uniforms next year, $16,778.
Assistance League of Phoenix is just grateful to Phoenix Rotary 100 and our partners at Legacy Foundation for the support. We will be able to dress hundreds of children in new school uniforms. These children, many of whom have not had new school clothes to wear ever. So it is really exciting. We are thrilled with the partnership. I see a lot of volunteers in the room who have come out to help us dress kids, either on our Delivering Dreams bus or at our philanthropic center. We are grateful to you. We hope we have many, many more years of partnership with Phoenix Rotary 100. Thank you very, very much.
And I just have one more comment as the membership chair. We will have, if you're interested in joining us in some of these endeavors and you're not a member of a Phoenix or a Rotary Club, we will have Andy Mosley. Andy, you want to say hello to everybody? She's going to be at the back with information on membership if anyone's interested. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe, and thanks to the Assistance League for all the good you do in the community. At this point, I think that our Vice President-elect has a couple of brief announcements.
Good afternoon, everyone. For the 3 guests at my table, I'm looking at you to see Andre Mosley afterwards to join us to be Rotarians. I'm up here to tell you about some exciting events coming up. Save the date, mark your calendar. The first of which is going to be the Phoenix Rotary 100 Career and Community Achievement Award. As many of you know, this award is to honor the legacy of fellow Rotarian and former Phoenix Mayor, the late John Driggs, whose son, State Senator Adam Driggs, is a member of this club. I don't know if Adam's here today, but if he is, happy birthday, it's his birthday. Last year, this prestigious award was given to Justice Sandra Day O'Connor. Right here in this ballroom, it was packed, even with a lot of media. We celebrated her personal contributions to our community and her professional achievements. This year, we are absolutely thrilled to give this award to none other than Jerry Colangelo. We will be giving Mr. Colangelo this award on Friday, October 21st, during our normal luncheon meeting right here at Phoenix Country Club. It's sure to be a packed house, so when RSVP time comes, make sure you do that. The second event I want to tell you about is our annual gala, our biggest fundraiser of the year. Our planning committee is already hard at work because on Saturday, November 5th, you are invited to Gatsby's Great Rotary Gala right here at Phoenix Country Club. In fact, this year, you can purchase a VIP ticket and be granted access to the speakeasy, where we'll have hand-rolled cigars, cordials, premium seating for an exciting event that's going to end the evening. More info to come. The money raised will benefit Phoenix Rotary Club charities, some of which you've seen the benefits of today with our check presentation. It will also benefit Arizona Anti-Trafficking Network. Today, Nancy Baldwin, who is with the Hickey Family Foundation and the Arizona Anti-Trafficking Network, has joined us as a guest. During my year as president, following Joe, we'll be focusing our efforts, as Rotarians do, with doing great things to combat human trafficking here in Arizona. So, save the date, mark your calendars, October 21st, November 5th. I expect to see all of you there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alistair. At this time, it's my privilege to introduce Randy Long, Principal of Arizona Balloon Safaris and Parachutes, as our chair of the day, to introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Roger, and happy Rotary Friday to everyone. My name is Randy Long. I serve on the board of directors of Phoenix Rotary 100. I also serve on the advisory board of the Salvation Army, and I chair the advisory council over at the ARC, which is the Adult Rehabilitation Center, which is a free 6-month drug and alcohol program, and it's operated by the Salvation Army. It's my pleasure today to introduce our speaker, General Andre Cox, who is the International Commander of the Salvation Army. He's joining us today from London. He's had quite a journey to get here, and we're very pleased to have him here today. Phoenix Rotary 100 and the Salvation Army have a long history of working together, dating back to our very beginnings. As you know, we're out ringing bells every year, and as Roger told you a little bit earlier, the rubber band is, of course, out every year singing Christmas carols, or not singing Christmas carols, as the case might be, to various businesses, and we have raised over $1.5 million since we started in 1967. Many of our current and past members serve on advisory boards of the Salvation Army, including, of course, Roger Marce, Barry Schemer, John King, Dick Eisenach, Frank Woods, and Marlene Klotz Collins. And of course, our own Lieutenant Colonel Joe Basilico is the Southwest Divisional Commander of the Salvation Army. So, always happy to have you here, Joe. But for many of you, your only experience with the Salvation Army is this. You know, all these people standing out in front of your favorite store collecting your loose change. But let me tell you, we're a whole lot more than that. The Salvation Army is one of the world's largest providers of social aid. We operate in 127 countries and speak 175 different languages. The Army just recently last year celebrated their 150th anniversary. The Salvation Army is a non-governmental relief agency and usually among the first to arrive with help after natural or man-made disasters. Just this week, Red Shield emergency response teams were in action in Ecuador for the earthquake. The Salvation Army is well known for their network of thrift stores, now called family stores, which raise money for our rehabilitation programs by selling used goods such as clothing, housewares, and toys. The family stores provide the revenue to run the adult rehabilitation centers known as ARCs. The ARCs are found in global locations, including right here in Phoenix. The program is work and Bible-based. It operates with a 12-step program and offers residential facilities for the free 6-month program. General Cox today would like to share with you his firsthand observations and insights on the refugee crisis in Europe, Middle East, and parts of Africa, threats to Christian communities in the Middle East and Africa, and other humanitarian issues of international concern. So, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the International Commander of the Salvation Army, General Andre Cox.
It's better you did that before I speak, because you may not be motivated to do it afterwards. But President Tony, Rotarians and guests, I want to say what a privilege it is for us to be able to be here today, and thank you for the invitation. We truly feel honored to be here. For a number of reasons, I actually feel quite at home. Obviously, we've heard about the close links between the Salvation Army and Rotary, and those run deep. But actually, I myself have been a Rotarian and served in the Rotary Club of Highlands, Harare in Zimbabwe. A long time ago, I think it was the 92-93 Rotary year when I was the president. So I've had a long-standing admiration for Rotary. It's great to see the four-way test on the wall. If everyone lived by that, the world would be a better place. But I also feel very much at home because you sing as good as any Salvation Army congregation. Wow. I mean, I've served in Rotary clubs, but they don't generally sing having just had a glass of water. But I also feel at home because, of course, I think we share a lot of the values and commitments to make this world a better place. So there are many ways in which the Salvation Army connects with Rotary. So it's great to be here. Well, I was elected to this responsibility on the 3rd of August 2013, and I didn't read the small print. What a wonderful privilege, but sometimes quite a challenge to lead this worldwide Salvation Army. But we have a unique privilege, and that is to travel quite extensively. We're usually on the road about 6 months of the year, visiting some of the 127 countries, and to see some of the amazing variety of programs that are undertaken by the Salvation Army around the world. And I have to say, I often am fed large quantities of statistics, and statistics do say something. I mean, I learned this morning that the Salvation Army here in the States impacts the lives of over 27 million people in any given year, which is a phenomenal number, but it doesn't really tell the story. It's when you can put a face to the story, as we were able to do this morning, and hear stories of how people's lives have been impacted, have been changed, because we were privileged to be able to walk alongside them and to help them in a time of need. And that really, I have to say, is the thing that motivates me to get up every morning, sometimes facing the battles that we have to face, but the challenges that we have to face as we work in this world. Well, I think the Salvation Army, since its earliest days in 1865 in the East End of London, has always had a strong bias for the poor and the marginalized people in society. And I see evidence that that bias still remains very true today. As we said, we currently operate in 127 countries. Insider information, it will soon be 128. So watch this space a bit later this year. But an incredible variety of development programs, community programs, of course, as well as the vast array of social programs of which we heard a little bit about in the introduction. Programs that impact the lives of thousands of people every day. But again, it's not about the fact that the Army world never sleeps. I wish it did sometimes. I made a mistake when we arrived in Phoenix. I was tired after a long, long flight and left the phone by the bed. Well, of course, I forgot that they were waking up in London, so I kept going all night. So I've remedied that. But it's not about the fact that operations go on all around the world every hour of every day. But it is really about stories, and we've seen some very moving stories. People who are marginalized sometimes because of mental problems. Society, you know, can be cruel. People are written off if they don't fit a mold. And to see how through some of these programs, structure can come into a person's life. Structure can come into chaos. They can get a handle on life. And to see some people who society would have written off actually getting gainful employment. I mean, what more do you need? That's what it's about. Well, of course, there is a myth that William Booth, when he founded the Salvation Army, was preoccupied about social exclusion, poverty. And by golly, the East End of London in 1865 was not a pretty place to be. And many people think that that is what shaped the vision of William and Catherine Booth in founding the Salvation Army. But in actual fact, he was primarily concerned about the exclusion of people who are already marginalized in society, also excluded from the church, which was reserved for the well-to-do people of that day. And many of the people William Booth was concerned about were not welcome in churches. And so he was primarily concerned about the spiritual poverty of that generation that was suffering in deprivation in this world, but no hope for a better future in the world to come. And it was after he started an evangelical ministry to preach the gospel to these people who were marginalized, of course, that he soon became confronted with the reality, well, it's great to preach good sermons and convince people with words, but when they haven't got clothes to put on their back, when they don't know where the next meal is going to come from, when their kids are dying from malnutrition, that's something that also needed to be done. And being a pragmatic sort of person, it didn't take William Booth long to figure out that it's great to preach a great message, but we need to preach it not with words, but by acts of love. And really, that's where the whole social conscience of the Salvation Army began to form in the very early age of this movement. And that's really exactly how we approach the issues of today. Now, many people are very confused when they look at the Salvation Army. Well, what is it? Is it a church? Is it an NGO? Is it a social agency? Actually, it's all of those things. Donuts. We promoted the Great American Donut. So, I actually think it's great when people can't tell what we are, because that's really not important. We don't need, I don't think the world actually needed in 1865 another religious denomination. I believe God gave a specific call to the Salvation Army, and it's great when people are not quite sure what we are. What's important is they understand what motivates us and why we do the things that we do. If we wanted to be a church, by the way, we'd be by far the most insignificant church. But we are the greatest army in the world. Well, when we look at the world today, I often think back to 1865, and I wonder, has humanity learned anything in our 150 years of history, let alone the longer years of human history? We just never seem to learn. And actually, in many parts of the UK today, we're seeing poverty re-emerging. You know, there are kids, 2 million plus in the UK, who are malnourished, go to school without eating anything before they go to school. This is in the 21st century. And so, while it's great for us to reflect back on history, we actually do need to be mobilized and roll up our sleeves, because the battle is far from won. There's still a lot of work to be done. And if the world ever needed organizations like the Salvation Army and Rotary, I believe it is now. Well, when we look at our world, and we are all too conscious of it as we travel around, we have to face the sad reality that there are many extremists in the world out there who perpetuate horrific crimes against humanity in their struggle for some warped ideology. But I want to say that I deliberately avoid stigmatizing Islam, because what people are doing in the name, so-called, of their religion, I'd like to say it's nothing to do with religion. They are just thugs and terrorists and need to be regarded as such. But when we look at the Middle East today, we do see, sadly, that in some areas, Christian populations who have been living for centuries side by side and at peace with Muslim brothers are being targeted. And that is a sad reality. But we also have to be aware of the fact that not only Christians are being targeted, there are many, many, many Muslims who are facing persecution in one way or another because of these extremists. And a lot of these people are currently fleeing to find places of safety. And if you have seen in the press, I mean, we have been horrified at some of the images that we've been seeing in Europe as people launch out across the Mediterranean in inadequate boats with small children. You've got to be pretty desperate, I think, to take that sort of step. 11 million people, approximately half the population of Syria, is currently uprooted. I mean, this is a nation imploding. It has serious consequences. Those fleeing are predominantly Muslim people. And so I think, and I usually say, you know, we've got to be careful about stigmatizing people when we talk about these issues. In some of the countries in which we as the Salvation Army work, Christians are in a very, very small minority. And yet generally, the Salvation Army is able to maintain an effective work and witness in such communities. And my experience is that we can always sit down and work with other faith groups, because there are people of goodwill, no matter what religious label they may carry. I've had the privilege over many years to visit community development programs in predominantly Muslim countries. It's been heartwarming for me to experience firsthand how enriching it can be to sit down with people of other faiths in respect and in dialogue, discussing the needs and the challenges of the communities in which they are living. It may surprise you, but in places like Pakistan, which has a terrible press, the media lampoons Pakistan as being one of the most extremist nations in the world, we have quite a vibrant Salvation Army presence there. In fact, we have more than double the number of Salvationists in Pakistan than we have in the UK, where the Salvation Army was founded. So, you know, when we visited Lahore, we had an opportunity to meet with some of the faith leaders, among them the Imam of the great mosque in Lahore. And it was quite interesting for us to see the interaction between the religious leaders, Christians, Muslims, Hindus. They all have their mobile phone numbers. And when, as recently happened in Pakistan, there was this bombing that seemed to target Christians in one of the parks, these guys are ringing each other, the Muslim to the Christian bishop, calling in the Hindus, and they talk together. How can we work together to keep our communities in check? How can we take the heat out of what is going on? And actually, we saw in a place like Pakistan that has one of the world's worst reputations in the media, an example how people actually of goodwill can come together and work. And I can tell you, what I saw in Pakistan would be a great model for faith leaders in other places to just take a look at and learn from. So I think we've got to be careful not to make general assumptions or allow our perceptions always to be shaped by what we read in the press. There are some amazing things that we see as we go around, and actually we see evidence that there are more things that actually connect us together as human beings than actually divide us. And that is why I'm glad that the Salvation Army has always maintained that in our provision of services, we do it without discrimination. We don't like to put labels, and we don't want to determine our provision of services on any criteria, and certainly not on the grounds of race, faith, gender, or sexual orientation. Well, of course, in the press now in Europe, very much the refugee crisis is often at the forefront. We are currently facing the greatest population migration. I think it's even gone beyond. It was initially the greatest migration since the Second World War. I think we're even getting beyond that at the moment with the volume of people that have been trying to get into Europe. It is the greatest humanitarian crisis that has certainly been faced in our lifetimes. And it is stretching European governments to the point of breaking. And in some ways, it does pose a threat to the cohesion of this experiment called the European Union. Thankfully, we're apolitical, by the way, so I haven't got time to get into the politics, but let me say that politics in Europe is about as simple as herding cats. If you've tried to do that, you find that they've all got claws. And try to get politicians singing from the same song sheets. But I know you would not sit back and scratch your heads and look at Europe and want to give political lessons to Europe, because I think you've got a few challenges. Can I be controversial? I was interested to learn about a tunnel where motorbikes come through. Build a wall? You figure it out. I mustn't say any more. I am but a guest here, so forgive me. Well, the Salvation Army has been responding in areas in Europe where actually we haven't got the strongest presence. The pressure points are in places like Greece and Italy. And the Salvation Army is quite small in those places, so it's been quite a challenge for us to scale up and to meet the needs there. But I see in that response in Europe something that I believe William and Catherine Booth would be proud of, to see the Salvation Army with its sleeves rolled up, trying to offer whatever pragmatic help we can and to meet pressing needs. I'm especially pleased that where the need has and situation has demanded it, that there are places in Europe where we have even taken our local churches, our places of worship. And we had the opportunity to challenge people in our home country of Switzerland and said, well, our refugee centers are full to capacity. More are coming, and we're being asked to take more. If we have to, turn our places of worship into places of refuge. And if we can't hold our regular services and if we can't hold our regular programs, well, God bless us. That's what God wants us to do. We've got to respond to this immediate need. And some have risen to that challenge. And some of our local churches, in emergency overflow, have actually been accommodating people within the premises that we've got, because it is more important that we respond to those needs. Slightly less on the radars of the world, the ongoing problems in Africa. Well, everyone looks at Africa and shakes their head. Well, I'm pretty much part African. I was born in Zimbabwe, if you have read. I've lived in sub-Saharan Africa for 23 years. And Africa drives you insane, but God, once it's in your blood, you can't let go. It's a wonderful place. But under the radars at the moment, you may have heard the rumblings of going on in Congo-Brazzaville. Sadly, when our presidents are elected, as we were reminded last week, sometimes the people say, long live. And they do live long lives, and you wish you hadn't said it. But another classic case in Brazzaville, a president has served the 2 constitutional terms. Oh, but I'm enjoying the job, I think I'll stay a bit longer. And there have been huge tensions in the city of Brazzaville, shelling within the city. I mean, just imagine what's going on. And in a matter of hours, 10,000 people were flocking to some of our Salvation Army compounds. Just imagine the logistical nightmare: water, sanitation. How do you feed these people? And so it goes on. And as we sit in the comfort of this place, another huge humanitarian crisis that has hardly had any press coverage anywhere. A pending famine taking place in sub-Saharan Africa, Malawi, Zimbabwe, Zambia. In addition to bad politics and corruption and all the other things, when the rains fail, I mean, the crops fail. Subsistence farmers have nothing to feed. And I fear that we are on the brink of a major humanitarian crisis, and that we will see people starving in the not too distant future. And so there is no end in sight for our world. The challenges of this world and for the Salvation Army. Ecuador just recently, huge earthquake. People's lives destroyed in a second. Japan. The list goes on. And it's good and right that the Salvation Army should be involved. So as I come to the conclusion, I'd simply say that in many of our developed countries, our social services, the ones that you know here in the United States, are pretty common in most of the developed countries. Programs for children, the elderly, homeless, drug, alcohol, dependency programs. In the developing world, we can add to that education, schools, primary schools, secondary schools, clinics, hospitals, etc., etc. And it may not be a fact that's well known, but actually if all of the religious organizations and churches withdrew their services in Africa in education and medical provision, many countries would see those services virtually brought to the point of collapse. It's an immense privilege, but also a huge responsibility for me to lead this global organization and church in these challenging times. And I have to say, the reputation of the Salvation Army is not made by a general, it is made by the soldiers, the volunteers, the officers of the Salvation Army who work day in and day out. And because of their efforts, because of their unstinting service, the Salvation Army enjoys the reputation that it does around the world today. I have to say, though, we are also grateful for the support, whether in kind, whether it's in human resources, and naturally also for the tremendous financial support that we receive from individuals, from local authorities, from governments, as well as organizations such as Rotary. As a Rotarian in Africa, I was involved in many projects, including the provision of clean, safe water in rural locations. We were involved, as you are, with the Polio Plus campaign, and actually when I was a Rotarian, that seemed to be an impossible mountain to climb, and yet we see the summit. It's so close. And so I encourage you to keep working with that. I was involved also in bringing Rotarian relief doctors into Zimbabwe to provide a bit of respite for our own medical doctors facing many challenges in rural settings. And so I know, therefore, of the strong commitment that each one of you has, and which helps in so many ways, I believe, to building a much better and more just world. Though the Salvation Army is perhaps the largest army in the world, there's no way that we could ever achieve what we achieve on our own. We recognize the strength of working together in partnerships. We recognize the tremendous support we receive from so many external supporters. And each one of you play a crucial role enabling us to bring positive change and transformation to communities and individuals around the world. And therefore, this is a perfect opportunity for me to express a personal word of thanks to each one of you, not only for being here today, but for your ongoing work for those who are less fortunate in society. I believe that it is as we seek to work together that we can truly make a difference in this world. Thank you very much.
The General has agreed to take some questions and try to answer them as best he can. I would remind my fellow Rotarians that this is a time for questions, not for many speeches. Many speeches will be rewarded. General Goss, I'll turn it over to you. Look at all these guys. Anyone? You got it.
Okay. Two questions. Well, they're the same question. Does the United States government and the UN contribute financially to your work?
I'm not best placed to actually answer that question from the US point of view, but I know we have very strong connections, but I don't know what financial support we get. I can talk about where I have served, where yes, we receive a lot of funding, but I'm not sure from a US perspective. Perhaps one of my colleagues.
Yes, we do. It's mainly routed, it all depends from the federal to the state. There's more direct program reimbursement for services.
Okay, so it's the same connection then the world over. So governments do see the work. The challenge for us in accepting that is not to compromise who we are, because sometimes that money is tight. So that is always an ongoing tension for us.
Thank you.
Summers White, my question could be answered in 4 words or 4 sentences. What are the
or 6 hours.
What are the 2 biggest problems you're facing internally and the 2 biggest problems you're facing externally?
Internally, I would say part of the greatest challenge, I think, internally is the fact that we are strongest in Africa and Asia, where we have the least financial resources. So being able to respond to that area where we have the greatest need and the greatest financial outlay is an ongoing challenge. How to motivate the rest of the world where we have resources to look at the need in the developing world. So I would say that's one. Second, internal would probably be the ongoing challenge to ensure that we are a mobilized army. When William Booth started, people were coming in off the streets. They were getting converted, their lives were being changed, and then they'd go out and they'd help people in the streets. Over time, 150 years of history, we can become settled, we can become comfortable, we can become complacent. So challenge is always Motivating our people. An army doesn't make sense if it's confined to barracks, it needs to be out there. Greatest challenges externally, I think certainly in the Western world with materialism and secularism, it is always a challenge for any religious organization. So we have to fight those battles, I think, out there. Externally, I think probably being a religious organization and a relatively, well, our spiritual understanding and our faith can become a challenge because we're targeted for that. I think of some of the challenges at the moment in the world with people who don't understand the faith side of the Salvation Army. I think is a significant threat for us. But I think where we get the model right and the fact that we do serve without discrimination saves us in many instances, but there is a significant pressure in some parts of the world to say do away with all of this religious stuff. So I think that's quite a challenge for us.
Do you have any thoughts on whether the UK will vote to leave the European Union? And if so, how would that affect the operations of the Salvation Army over there?
Now that is that's not a loaded question. You have to understand the UK. I'm half British and half Swiss, so on one side we have the English Channel that protects us from the world, and from my Swiss side we live in the mountains, so we don't see the misery around us. So we're quite comfortable living that way. You have to understand, in Britain, when there is fog on the English Channel, it is the continent that is isolated. Okay? Now, once you've got that, you can understand the challenges that Europe faces. I think there is incredible frustration not only in the UK, actually. This European Union is a huge bureaucratic machine. And there is great resentment in many countries that a lot of control over our own laws, our own policies, etc., are being decided by people in Belgium, in Brussels, and that is a huge challenge. I'd be surprised if the vote actually does go for the UK to step out, because we would now be reversing back into uncharted waters. The problem in the debate is that there is a lot of scaremongering on both sides and trying to sift through the realities. Switzerland actually is not a member of the European Union, but has had to negotiate with 23 other countries sort of trade agreements. So there's a huge complication if you're not a member, And that would actually have consequences in the UK. I have to say there are a lot of people who would like to kick Brussels in the shin, but I would be surprised if it really swings the other way, but who knows? Who knows? You have Donald, we have Boris. Just imagine if Boris becomes Prime Minister and Donald President. I mean, this is entertainment value off the scale.
Zimbabwe may outlaw the import of genetically modified foods. Does the Salvation Army have a position on that particular subject, and how do you see that affecting this oncoming drought and the subsequent famine that's going to follow it?
Well, part of the problem, I think it goes even deeper than that. When we were in Zimbabwe, we went through 2 severe droughts in the 10 years we were working there. And we were importing maize, actually from the United States. The government part of the problem is the government wants to actually control all of that. So what they want is for the Salvation Army or any organization to import foodstuffs into the country and hand them over to the government, and who knows what happens. They don't want anyone else to get any credit for doing anything the government provides. So that is the number one problem. We used to import milk powder from Switzerland, and we would have to give samples of the product. What did they do with it? My guess was that they would actually use it in their tea and their coffee, and if it tasted all right, they'd let it in. I had no idea what, but the controls themselves are horrendous. So I'm not actually sure how any organization is really going to be able to help. And you add to that the ongoing tensions and debates about genetically modified food. I think it's more actually the control from the government themselves. They'll take, if it gets them votes, they'll take basically anything, but who wants to work directly with them? That's the challenge, I think, more than the problem of genetically modified stuff. But they'll always find some sort of loophole. They want to keep control. That is the problem.
I have a question. I think I know part of the answer, but I think that the Salvation Army is somewhere around top 1 or 2 nonprofits in the world in terms of what you bring in revenues. And your compensation for the CEO is somewhere at the bottom. I'm wondering if you might be able to explain or how you do not develop resentment when you can't match someone like Goodwill's CEO of a $2.3 million salary.
Yeah.
And maybe explain what your salary is for the.
Well, my monthly allowance is £1,211 and a few pence. Sylvia gets the same allowance, so the general doesn't get more. I mean, we each get an allowance. The Salvation Army provides us with accommodation. We don't own property, so we live in Salvation Army provided accommodation. I wasn't called to be a CEO. I was called actually to proclaim the gospel. How I ever ended up here, God knows. But I'm having a ball. So that's never been an issue for me. I'm really not interested. I do find problems personally when you're raising money for specific needs, for community needs, and so much is creamed off. I have to say that we do employ people that have far larger salaries than I will ever have. And that's not a problem either, because I was called to be what I am. And I have to say, although I will never be a millionaire, I have never lacked for anything, because one, I think the Salvation Army takes pretty good care of us, but I also know that God has taken care of us, and our family has never wanted for anything. It really does. It doesn't even feature on my radar. I'm not really interested.
We're going to have to stop at that point so that we can adjourn close to on time. The gentleman and I were talking before the meeting. He's quite familiar with the Polio Plus campaign. For the benefit of our guests, Polio Plus is a program that Rotary International began in 1985. At that time, there were 1,000 new cases of polio a day around the world. It's pretty much eradicated in this country, but on a global basis, 1,000 new cases a day, 365,000 a year. Polio, the Rotary has announced in 1985 that they were committed to eradicating polio. Today, $1.5 billion later, some of it from our partners, such as the Gates Foundation. We reduced polio to under 100 a year. I think the number last year was 74. So, General, I want to present you with a certificate in remembrance of your time here at Rotary 100, and our club is also making a contribution to the Polio Plus campaign in recognition of your sharing your thoughts with us today.
President Tony, could I just make this? There's just a picture book of our 150th birthday party and the Salvation Army yearbook as well. Thank you. Thank you.
During my year as president, I used to finish each meeting with a couple of lines from a poem by John Wesley. I'm sure the General and every other Salvation Army officer in the room is familiar with it. William Booth was a Methodist minister. John Wesley was the founder of the Methodist Church. William Booth left the Methodist Church to form the Salvation Army. But he took with it some of the teachings of the Methodist Church, including the thoughts in this poem. I think it's been the guiding precept of the Salvation Army since its beginning. But I'd like the Rotarians in the room just to think about this in terms of our commitment to service of ourselves, because I think it resonates well for Rotary. Do all the good you can, to all the people you can, at all the times you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, as long as ever you can. On that note, I would like to turn the meeting back to our current president, and let him formally adjourn us.
What an inspirational meeting. Thank you, General Cox. It was very well done. I'm very proud to be part of it. And is there any business, Joe, that we need to take care of? Beth? All right. This adjourns our 5,100, and I love saying that, 17th meeting. I'm so proud. Have a great weekend.